You really shouldn't have to remind people that they should take a break. But unfortunately, it is a very important conversation to have with yourself and a very important conversation to have with your friends and remind them that you've been working too hard. I think you're putting too much pressure on yourself. Now, in this year that we are currently in, one thing I want to encourage you to do is to be very conscious about having fun and understanding the fact that too much work and no fun is actually unhealthy for you. It's very important for you to switch environments and also switch contexts. Put your mind in a space where it does not feel as much pressure as it feels when you are busy with something productive like school, homework, assignments, or anything of the sorts. So we're going to be focusing on all of these conversations and looking at the different dynamics and how you can fool yourself into working harder than you should and not taking breaks to just enjoy time with friends, enjoy time reading a book and just finding it relaxing, watch a movie, watch a series, and also learning not to overdo that in itself, because you can be very addicted to watching a certain type of series, scrolling through TikTok and all of those things. You can be very addicted to that. So let's look at it from all aspects of those dynamics, right? So it is critical to have a good time responsibly and to do it intentionally in the year that is ahead of you. So I was listening to something a while back, and they were talking about how would you still be running if no one was chasing you? And it was basically getting to the point that there are people who only do things because they are pressured to do them. But if there was no pressure, they would not do them. A lot of us are in school because we have to. It's not something that we would do. You would prefer school, or you would prefer to continue learning, just not in the context of school as it is today, right? You'd prefer learning by any other means, or through some game, which there are actually many courses these days that sort of gamify your learning, and I love those. I personally love those. And there are other things as well that you just wouldn't do, like chores. You wouldn't do it unless someone was breathing down your neck. If someone was not breathing down your neck, you definitely wouldn't do certain chores. Some things, so I say that to make this point. There are some things that we will have to do in life, and that's totally fine. Some things we have to do out of duty. Other things we have to do because it benefits the next person. Then there are things, and you always have to isolate time for this. Some things you have to specifically do for yourself. Parents get caught up in this, where they focus so much emphasis on raising their children and depriving themselves, and they feel very honorable for doing so. I know many mothers who have done this, right? They've deprived themselves of enjoyment, deprived themselves of buying themselves new outfits, because it's more honorable for them to look after their children. But now, I want to speak about this in the context of school assignments, in the context of homeworks, in the context of investing yourself in trying to start your career if you've just finished varsity, or even if you're still grinding in varsity and want to break through and get the best marks at school. The thing about that is this, right? It is very good for you to deprive yourself of fun, to deprive yourself of hanging out with friends, and deprive yourself of many other things that you could have been doing in order for you to get very good grades, because it'll absolutely pay out at the end. But the one thing you should be careful of, because here's the thing, right? Ask yourself, why are you doing that? If you're doing it out of duty and because it's one of the things you've decided that I have to do this for the sake of myself, for the sake of my family, to make my mom and dad proud, to make sure that I'm able to earn a living for myself, then absolutely do that. And put as much effort as you can. But do remember that this is physiologically, your body needs to take a break. Your body needs to just sit down and unwind and do nothing. And I know this sounds weird, because for most people, most of us have a problem of resting too much, not resting too little. But it's important to address the issue of being intentional about your rest, even though it doesn't affect most of us, right? In fact, some of us aren't even intentional about resting. We just do it, right? You just find yourself resting. But it's important to have this conversation because it is something that some of us have to schedule. It is something that some of us have to be very conscious about, because if we're not, we definitely will lose track of how little rest we've actually been giving ourselves. So these are things that I would like you to think about. This is something that I would like you to sit down, take a moment, and let it sink in. How often do you rest within a week, right? If you're going to study within a week, if you're doing homework within a week, how often are you intentional about sitting down and unwinding? You know, something I like to do is, and I definitely haven't been doing as much as I should. I think as much as I should. I love hiking. Hiking is something I find very relaxing and therapeutic, and I love hiking with someone, you know, my partner, or hiking with a friend, or hiking with, you know, someone, and having nice conversations that aren't, you know, too political or stressing, or talking about, you know, ESCOM not giving us electricity. I love having conversations that just ease the mind, and that sort of produce good chemicals in my brain. Another thing I love doing is, if I've been working on my computer, I love to get up, take a little bit of a walk, come back, play a stressless game, you know, that's going to make me unwind. If I'm playing a game, this is the point here, if I'm playing a game that feels like it's stressing me too much and a bit too hard for me to advance in the game, I feel like I haven't rested. And that's something that you should be very mindful of. Sometimes you will do things thinking that you're resting, but that thing is actually putting pressure on you. If you're playing a game, a video game, that is actually stressing you, you're playing with friends that are demanding you to win and kill the enemy, that are swearing at you, then you're not resting at all. Your mind is still under pressure. You need to learn to find things that don't induce pressure in order for you to rest. Have a picnic. Play a mindless game that sort of puts your mind at rest, that you don't need to put too much effort into thinking about who you're going to be defeating, because sometimes you'll think you're resting, but you're actually putting your mind at work on something else. Although I will mention that it is, if you've been working on a project, right, at school or an assignment, it is rest to shift and let your mind focus on something else, even if that thing does induce a certain amount of pressure. But one thing I want to make very clear, right? So, first of all, yes, it is rest for you to shift focus onto something else. However, you must ask yourself if the thing that you're shifting towards, is it not just another thing that's going to put pressure on you, right? Those are very important questions for you to ask. When you do that thing, do you feel like, if I don't get this right, oh my goodness? Are you actually having fun, you know? I love playing 30 seconds. I love that game. And that game comes with a lot of pressure. But it's not pressure that makes you feel like, if I don't get this right, and you start feeling anxious. So that's a very good way to relax and forget about whatever work you were doing. Monopoly, personally, I think is just too much pressure. I don't enjoy that game. It takes away the fun. There's too much pressure. People get greedy. You get to see how, you know, how people don't even care to find ways. You know, I love seeing I think people's true hearts are expressed when situations are unfair. I think that's where you truly see the heart of an individual, when situations present themselves as unfair. So Monopoly is one of those games that are extremely unfair, right? Because you play alone, and some people they might not have a strategic advantage, but they just have a circumstantial advantage, you know? They just happen to have made, by mistake, a decision that put their finances way ahead of yours. And yeah, but anyways, that's a little bit of an off-ramp. But point I want to make is, games like Monopoly tend to not make your mind rest. They don't amuse your mind, which literally means putting your mind at rest. And I would also, if you're going to watch a series of something, make sure that you limit the amount of time you spend on things like that, because it definitely does make a difference. It absolutely does. Here's what I mean. Those things are addictive. if games as well, right? They're very addictive. If that's what you use to take the time to relax, make sure that you set a limit as to how much time you spend on them. But things like taking a walk, those you have to first of all be a lot more, encourage and motivate yourself to do them a lot more. And at the same time, as you're doing them, they're not the things that we default to doing, but they are the most healthy to do. In fact, even playing a game is better than just watching an episode of something, because you're letting your body be active and you're giving it a form of movement. So in this part of the conversation, I'm focusing a lot on taking micro breaks. And here's a very beautiful lesson I learned, right? I learned this and I love it. I've kept it for so long. I'm not always successful at executing it. You should never take breaks that are longer than your productivity, your time of productivity. So if you've been studying for 2 to 3 hours, don't let your rest be 4 to 5 hours. Your rest should at least be an hour, right? Or 30 minutes to an hour, then you're back to working again. That's something you should be very mindful of. Never let your rest be longer than your time of productivity, because your body goes into a state of rest and it doesn't want to be productive anymore. And your mind also shifts its focus entirely. Then that momentum you've been building up, you have to start building it up from scratch. So definitely do consider that. It's a tip I want to give you. Now, I want to also speak on being restful in the grander side of things, right? In the bigger picture side of things. There's finding rest through going on holiday, finding rest by going to do certain things with friends, going camping, and just forgetting about the technologies and all the things that you need to keep up with. Even the series that you feel like, I need to watch this episode. Just go and forget about all those things. Go camping. Go have fun swimming and focus on just that. Have your mind absorbed in that. This is why I really do not like going to a place like camping or enjoying myself at a restaurant with a view and just sitting there. I hate going to do that and having someone come with a phone and insist on taking pictures, because it puts pressure on me when I'm relaxing somewhere to now have to pose and entertain a person who's excited by taking pictures. I don't mind pictures. I just feel like they need to be candid, not interrupt or interfere with the moment that we're experiencing. And this is why I hope one day I'm able to own a drone with a high definition camera, so that the pictures can just be taken organically by something, while we just do our thing. I'm looking forward to get to that time where drones and cameras, I know they are that advanced. I just feel like they're too expensive right now. But that's the thing I just want to encourage you to do. And these little tiny things that cause you to not rest, be very mindful of them. Be very, very mindful of them.